마지막 하나만 주세요. Basically, and telling people they may not be able to come back to work at all. So do you still believe a shutdown would broadly hurt the American people?
We are always of the view that we need to fund the government and make sure that the services that the American people rely upon can continue to be received, and also that we stand by our federal civil service. We've seen, since January 20th, mass firings already taking place by the Trump administration in the absence of government shutdown, because this is what they've determined to do, hurt everyday Americans. We consistently have made the point, we want to find a bipartisan path forward and reach a spending agreement with our Republican colleagues that actually meets the needs of the American people, but that also addresses the Republican health care crisis that is harming everyday Americans all across the country. Rural America, urban America, the heartland of America, suburban America, small town America, and black and brown communities throughout America.
If there is a shutdown, then what do you do? We have about 30 seconds left here.
Well, we've seen during the Trump administration, the first time around, a 35-day government shutdown. That was way too long. Ultimately, Donald Trump and Republicans came to their senses. Hopefully, we avoid a shutdown this time around. And if we're in one, we find a quick path out.
Are you more optimistic this morning?
I'm hopeful.
Okay, well, thanks very much for joining us, Leader Jeffries.
Thank you.
And let's bring in House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. Good morning, Leader Scalise. You heard Leader Jeffries there. The Democrats sound dug in. Do you think President Trump can make a big difference?
He can, Martha, and thanks for having me. You know, President Trump's been trying to get a deal. You know, we passed a bill through the House to keep the government from shutting down. Hakeem actually whipped his members to shut the government down. He voted that way, but luckily we were able to get the bill passed. So right now it's over in the Senate, and it's on Chuck Schumer and Democrats in the Senate to keep the government from shutting down, and I hope they'll come to their senses and do that early next week.
But you need those Democratic votes for sure. So how do you bring them towards your side or compromise?
Well, nobody needs to move to any side. Just keep in mind, Martha, if you go back to March, this is the same set of funding levels that Democrats voted for in March that is contained in this CR. So there is no new changes to what we're trying to do to keep negotiations going. We still need to have negotiations. There is a conference committee on many of the appropriations bills right now. Tom Cole and his appropriators have gotten agreements on most parts of government funding, and it's been the Democrat leadership that's held them off. Ultimately, let's let those talks continue till November with this short-term government funding bill that's in the Senate. But it's the same levels of funding that the Senate voted for, Democrats included, back in March.
And the administration has threatened these mass firings of federal employees. What would that look like? And is that something you support?
Well, I haven't seen the full details, but if you go back to COVID, Martha, President Biden dramatically expanded, mushroomed the size of the federal government, supposedly to deal with COVID. Well, COVID is over, and yet many of those federal agencies are still 20 or 30% larger than they were before COVID. And so there's been a need for a right sizing of the federal government for a long time. President Trump's talked about that with DOGE and other things he's doing to try to save waste, fraud, and abuse in government. And I think everybody knows there are billions and tens of billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse that still needs to be rooted out. We got to some of that, but there's more that needs to be done.
Is that the way to do it? Whether you pare down the federal government or not, is that the way to do it? A government shutdown, you just start mass firings?
Well, obviously there's lots of ways to do it. It'd be nice if there was a bipartisan agreement to cut out waste, fraud, and abuse in government, but every Democrat voted no, voted against things like taxpayer funding for illegals to get government benefits. Every Democrat voted against rooting that out. Giving checks, government checks to dead people. It's been going on for a long time. We finally put verifications in place. Every Democrat voted against that. So far, they've shown they don't want to root out waste, fraud, and abuse. President Trump ran on doing it. He was elected with a mandate by the American people to finally bring fiscal sanity so we can reduce deficits, get spending under control, get the economy back on track. And that's what we've been laser focused on.
You heard Leader Jeffries say he was hopeful there would not be a government shutdown. Would you say you're hopeful? And if so, why?
I'm not only hopeful, Speaker Johnson, all my Republican colleagues voted to prevent a government shutdown, and we passed that bill to the Senate. That bill's still sitting over in the Senate. You saw a vote a few days ago where almost every Republican and only one Democrat voted for it. There's still time for an agreement to be reached. I'm glad that President Trump is showing leadership and meeting with all leaders, Republican and Democrat, Monday in the White House. But ultimately, those Democrats have to make a decision. Do they want to shut down the government to appease their radical base, who's been just looking for a fight for Donald Trump for no reason other than they're not happy with the results of the election last year? Or are they going to work with the president to keep negotiations going? This is a short-term funding bill that goes till November 21st, allows for government, troops to be paid, all of the other things that Hakeem and everybody says they don't want, yet they voted to shut the government down. Let's have the Senate go do the right thing and pass that bill that's sitting over there waiting.
And quickly, if you could, Leader Scalise, I want to talk about the Comey indictment. Let me read you what your fellow Republican caucus member, Representative Don Bacon, wrote in response to the indictment. Lawfare undermines our great country. It didn't start in January, but it didn't end either. The continued escalation will only hurt us all. Your response to that?
Well, we saw an unbelievable abuse of power from federal agencies for years and years. And frankly, James Comey is one of the main culprits in undermining the public's trust in agencies like the FBI. He abused his power, Martha, and now ultimately he has been indicted for lying to Congress. This isn't about what he did to the president, it's about lying to Congress and obstructing justice. And that's what he was indicted for. He's going to ultimately go before a jury of his peers, so he gets to make his case. But they're serious charges, and it's not the only thing that he's done that he's been accused of in the past. I mean, he was behind the Russian hoax that undermined public confidence in these agencies. He's accused of being a dirty cop, and that's it's not a good place for somebody to be, and he's disgraced the agency.
We will see what happens in court. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Leader Scalise. Coming up, the president's message to world leaders at the UN and the fallout from the latest targeted shooting. The roundtable weighs in when we come back.
I am what I am! New era. Nothing beats real.
without a teleprompter because the teleprompter is not working. These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, you know? They actually said during the campaign, they had a hat, best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true.
Just some of the president's message to the UN General Assembly this week. The roundtable's all here to debate that and much more. We're back in a moment.
Varilla tastes like family since forever. Our price match guarantee lets you deliver exceptional wow on an everyday budget.
Town there, like. Come some 10 a.m. Come sometime.
Stream on Hulu.
Let's bring in the roundtable now. Former DNC Chair Donna Brazil, NPR Morning Edition host Steve Inskeep, New York Times national politics reporter Estet Herndon, and SCOTUS blog editor Sarah Isger. Good morning to all of you. And Steve, I'm going to go right at you. You just saw that little UN tape talking about escalators, talking about teleprompters, saying the other countries are basically going to hell. How do you think that played around the world?
I think most of the world has gotten used to the president's presentational style, if we can, and is trying to figure out what they can get out of the situation. And I do want to note, Martha, as you know very well, even though the president remains unconventional in the way that he's talking, his policies in some areas, particularly Ukraine, have become more like the old bipartisan consensus, a little bit more conventional. The president is now stepping back and saying that Ukraine are the United States, just somebody else paying the bills. At the same time, there is a bit of a cost on the world stage to the way that the president presents the United States. I was in a meeting with the president of Iran this past week with a number of other reporters. He's answering questions. And he was able to take a number of shots at the Trump administration, saying we would like to make an agreement. They have taken a couple of shots at that. No, for sure. In a big way, but there was a moment in which one of the people in the room said, I would like to travel to Iran, but I do not trust that you would let me out of the country. And the president of Iran said, we'll let you out of the country. The concern you would have is whether Mr. Trump would let you back in.
Trying to do a zinger there. But people listen to him, that's for sure. He definitely has influence. But back home, Sarah, it's the America First agenda, and that's really what people want to hear.
I actually think at this point in the presidency, if you wanted to define what the Trump doctrine is, looking at this speech might be the first place I would point you to. It really walked through, I think, the underpinnings of what Donald Trump is about and what, frankly, the new Republican Party, therefore, is about. He talked about immigration, that they have not had anyone released into the country illegally under, the last 4 months. He talked about the need to stop migration between countries. That globalization was the evil. What is the purpose of the UN? Talking about the United States being responsible for ending wars and the UN not doing anything except words. This is the Donald Trump presidency, and this really now is the Republican Party.
And what he did not talk about, is the war in Gaza. But there was a tease on Friday from the president saying he thought they were close to a deal. We've heard that before.
We've heard that before.
again, we've seen the White House kind of talk about this peace plan he's putting out. I think we should be skeptical to take it on its face. There's a number of proposals in there, even the parts that have leaked that have, Israel or Hamas may not necessarily agree to. But what we saw in the speech at the UN, what I think is an example of what Trump has always said. The setting was different, but this is the Monterey version of him. And I really think that he has, to Sarah's point, made a kind of foreign policy transition among the Republican Party. They take pride in the way the kind of America First agenda has supplanted the George Bush, more conventional versions of the Republican Party in the past. So much so, it's very hard to see them kind of returning back. Trump has written a new version of kind of